This is Rick Goodrich, your Chief of Safety and Security for Boerne ISD, and you're listening to The Ascent with Crestmont Private Wealth.
The opinions expressed are those of the host. The material is for informational purposes only. It does not constitute investment advice, and it is not intended as an endorsement for any specific investment. Visit CrestmontPW.com for more details.
Welcome to The Ascent. This is Sam McGee, CEO and owner of Crestmont Private Wealth. We have an office in Houston, Texas, and in Boerne, Texas. And I have a very special guest here on the show today, Rick Goodrich. Welcome to the show.
Thank you, Sam. Thanks for having me. And thank you, Boerne.
So I've got to give a quick bio because this is extensive. This falls into the category of some of the most interesting people we've had on the show, no doubt about it in my mind. Rick Goodrich is currently the Chief of Safety and Security for Boerne Independent School District. However, in addition to, he brings 22 years of law enforcement, including experience with the DEA, 22 years in active duty service with the Air Force. He supervised the San Antonio, Texas Anti-Gang Initiative, extensive work with the FBI, DPS, IRS, Homeland Security. In other words, as my dad would say, he's a bad mamma jamma. And I think that a lot of people don't appreciate the importance of security until they don't have it. So thinking about wealth management, thinking about how we talk about health and wellness, and you know, you can have all the money in the world, but if you're not healthy, you're not going to enjoy it. You can have all the money in the world, but if you're not secure, well, that's not good either. So let's start off. Rick, tell us a little bit about your background. What led you to Boerne ISD and what you're doing now?
All right, fantastic. So just full transparency, right? My military time overlapped with my time with the DEA. So that's how those numbers, if somebody's listening, they're like 44 years and he's only 53. He's like the Doogie Howser of the military. I did 7 years, 9 months of active duty and then transitioned to the National Guard and then was able to do both as a special agent with the DEA and as an officer in the Tennessee Air National Guard. I was the commander of the 118th Security Forces Squadron there. A little shout out to those guys, right? And that's where I closed it out at. So I started out as a day zero basic trainee, NCO, E6, and then I was fortunate enough to go to OCS and become an officer. So I think I can speak intelligently about each type of service that you can do. But yeah, because sometimes those numbers, somebody's working that math, right? I can see the ones and zeros going like, that doesn't add up.
It's still more than I've done.
Well, Sam, you serve.
Time out.
Time out.
So my last assignment with DEA was here in San Antonio. You had mentioned I had the good fortune of leading the Texas Anti-Gang Initiative. And that's a multi-agency task force focused on gangs and violent crime in South Texas. And I was also one of the supervisors for our Houston Division Special Response Team, which covered about 2/3 of the state. So from Waco to the border, San Angelo to the Texas-Louisiana border. In that 5 to 6 year period there, it's fantastic. Fell in love with Texas, and even in retirement knew that Boerne was the place for us. And that was a big driving force for my wife and I, because most federal agencies have a policy after a certain amount of years as a supervisor, you have to go to DC and be a part of that headquarters element. And so those times were coming up for me. And we had already had a good idea that we probably weren't going to move to D.C. and looking at options. My little girl was a cheerleader there at Boerne High, and she'd lived everywhere following my career. Her first 6 years of her life were in Bogota, Colombia, right? 4 months to 6 years old. So I felt like I owed her the high school experience, right? And I'm glad we did. It's fantastic here. And then in my last months of assignment, the tragedy at Robb Elementary occurred.
Yep.
And so with the nature of my task force, we had responded to Uvalde. They'd put a call out to essentially send everyone. So we went to try to contribute however we could. And just seeing the results, right, of when evil manifests itself in that way, and how important it is to have well-intentioned people, good guys with guns, willing to raise their hands, right, and say, I'm going to protect those that can't protect themselves. Never thought I would be working in schools or school-based law enforcement. That's definitely not their traditional track. DEA to school-based law enforcement. But you see that trend now. We have a couple of other Boerne residents that you may know, John Kane and Paul Duran, both retired Secret Service agents, both now filling a role similar that I do with different school districts, one private and then the other with Northeast ISD. So you see the trend now with school leadership, and I credit Tommy Price, men like Rich Senna, Carlin Fryer, Garrett George, all folks that were on the school board at that time, with saying, hey, we're not doing enough. And they created a strategic level position that reports to the superintendent, whose sole responsibility is the safety and security for our 11,000 students and 1,400 staff. That's kind of morphed into a role and a partnership with the city of Boerne as a real partner when we talk about emergency management. It's a novel approach, and it speaks to the confidence and the leadership also of our city officials, right? When we talk about a city manager in Ben, we talk about a chief of police and Steve Perez, fire chief and Manny Casares, they get it. And they're not afraid to listen to new ideas and new partnerships. And so you see a relationship here in Boerne where we're a unicorn town, right? And we invite a lot of folks in to kind of see how we do it and lessons learned. This year we were invited in to come and speak at the Texas School Safety Conference about what works for us and some concepts and principles that may work for other school districts, right? A community approach to school safety. It's been well received. There's real buy-in here in this community. And there's an expectation, right? When you drop your child off to school, most of the residents of Boerne have options. They can afford to send their child anywhere, but they still have the confidence in Boerne ISD to take care of that child. And I take a lot of pride in that. We've grown quite a bit since the narrative and expectation has changed. And a lot of that is because of the partnerships in this community.
Yeah, that's outstanding. And, I remember when you first took over that role, you did a preparedness active shooter training over at the middle school, which I was fortunate enough to be able to participate in. There was a multi-agency effort. I think we had the sheriff office there. We had Boerne Police. We had SROs. Maybe just for people that are listening to this who have grandkids, kids in public school, I mean, what does it look like these days? I mean, they see what's on the news with everything that happens across the U.S. with the various tragedies and shootings and whatnot. But what does it look like from a preparedness standpoint in your view?
So you have to have a plan. You've got to be able to rehearse the plan and develop that muscle memory. If you wait until game day, you're going to fail every time. It's no different than athletics or anything else. The amount of preparedness that you have directly correlates to your success. So we spend a lot of time, not notionally, but intentionally, in how we approach it. As you know, Sam knows because he's attended training with us as well, we're a regional host for an organization called Alert. And Alert is mandated by the FBI, Department of Homeland Security, and most importantly, locally, Governor Abbott has said every police officer in the state will do 2 days of training, 16 hours every 2 years. And that has mandated a across-the-board standard response to an active attack event. Because what do we know? Everyone's going to come and they're going to try and contribute. But if they don't have the same play sheet, it's going to cause more harm than good.
Yep.
So we spend a lot of time. I take a lot of pride in the fact that we're well over 60 classes now in the last 2.5 years, and we've trained over 1,000 officers, firemen, and EMS in that period of time. And so I don't think we're doing enough still. And that's why I'm always looking for other resources, other opportunities, other avenues to try and increase that. And as you're aware in your role with Boerne Fire, we're going to do that same thing this January. We're doing a full mission profile exercise at one of our new facilities. We'll probably have as many as 120 first responders participating in that from the region, preparing for that day, right? Because we all agree the day chooses you.
That's right.
I'd love to be able to schedule a critical incident, negotiate and be like, this is what works for me. But that's not the reality, right? So we had to be prepared all the time.
So if you're sitting, listening to this right now, and you're that grandparent or parent, and maybe you're listening in Harris County, somewhere out of the area, Boerne ISD, and just kind of thinking about safety, I mean, do you think that we've come far enough? Do you think we still have a long ways to go when we talk about state of Texas? Is there a lot more meat on the bone of preparedness, you think? Or is that a local thing, or is it a state thing? What do you think?
I'll speak to it in two ways. A lot of the success we have here is based on this community. And you were a part of this. When I first took this position, we didn't have the tools that our SROs needed. And so we went to the public and we raised money pretty quickly, over $100,000, to have a standardized trauma bag, ballistic shields, safes, a standard rifle to issue across, because our SROs are drawn from 3 different agencies. So if we had waited for 3 separate bureaucracies to agree on what would work and what wouldn't, we may still be waiting, right? But instead we went to the public, and you know how generous this community is.
No doubt.
Blew me away. The second part of that question is, if you're not constantly improving, tactics evolve. What have we seen? I just did a class this Saturday over at Curry Creek for church security team members through a not-for-profit that we've started. The level of eagerness to train and improve, even though this isn't their job, they're all have their own businesses, very successful in life, and their eagerness to train and participate, it only re-energized myself and my team about how important it is, right? Because it's not just schools. 60% of these attacks are in places of commerce, right? It's malls. When we talk about now the trend, it's churches and religious-based education facilities. A lot of time, those places are forgotten. And so just because we're doing all the things we need to in one spot doesn't mean across the board we're doing all we can.
Sure. So it sounds like there's 2 common denominators there. One is preparedness, and the other one is, quite frankly, funding. You have funding, you have a willing community, you have active participants of those that want to improve the response and tactics towards creating a safer environment in schools, churches, commerce. That's kind of the formula. Is that fair to say?
It's spot on. You're exactly right.
I definitely understand the importance of that. I lived overseas growing up, all over the place. I almost lived in Dubai, lived in Singapore. I will say Singapore was probably the safest place I ever lived. If you spit out gum, you go to jail. So I didn't worry about gangs and things like that. But here in the U.S., we got a lot of freedom, and it comes with a price. And security is super, super important. Tell us a little bit, Rick, about your nonprofit. Share a little bit about what fueled that and where someone could reach you if they were interested in learning more about security, whether they're at a company, a different school district. They just want to reach you. Where would they find you?
So we're going back about 6 months now. We started an organization called Paton Shield, and that's the Greek word for beloved child. And the focus is, are providing that information, that training and education for those that we can't do through the grant. So I'm really proud to be a part of it and the foundational piece on this. There's so much out there. It's not just raising funds for SROs and kind of bridging the gap, but also giving veterans a purpose. We have a heavy veteran community here, many of whom are former special operators or have special skill sets that have now transitioned, They're selling real estate or they're doing something else to provide for their families. And then this gives them a sense of purpose, again, to transfer that knowledge base. And so how can you reach us if you have interest? And so right now, most of our focus is on the private schools that are popping up all over because of the voucher program and our religious facilities. So that's PAIDION Shield, all one word, patonshield.org, where you can reach us and go to the website. Now, the website was made by a bunch of knuckleheads. I've never had a real job, and most of the team hasn't either.
We're not going to judge your security skills off our website. I'll tell you that.
Please don't. Please don't. But I think we've done an effective job with it. There's so many special people in the community that have contributed to help us get this off the ground. I have to say, Stacy Elmagar, Kim Blum, and others have really been instrumental in helping us get there. It means a lot. So thank you for allowing me the platform here to talk about what we're doing.
Rick, thank you for being here.
Thank you for having me, Sam.
So we've had Rick Goodrich here on the show today. He is the Chief of Safety and Security for Boerne Independent School District. We've been talking about security, the importance and the evolving landscape and the threat that is there to companies, places of worship, and schools. And I just want to say on behalf of the entire community, Rick, just thank you for making that career choice to protect our kids, and we couldn't be more grateful for you. I hope everyone has a wonderful weekend, and God bless.